All right, so you've got me really curious about Liverpool's tactics this season.
Yeah.
You sent over, like, a ton of articles, even some match analysis. And I got to say, Klopp's been making some really interesting moves, you know?
Yeah.
It's almost like he's playing a whole different game of, like,
Right.
football chess out there.
Yeah, exactly. And your sources are spot on. I mean, it is fascinating. You can really see how Liverpool are taking that that sort of classic heavy metal football.
Yeah.
And they're blending it with these really intricate,
Right.
almost surgical tactical moves this season.
Heavy metal football, that's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
All out pressing,
Yeah.
quick attacks,
Yeah.
no time for, like the fancy stuff. Just
Right.
get in there and win the ball back. That's the traditional image of Liverpool.
Exactly.
But it feels like this season, it's a whole new ball game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the intensity's still there, right?
Yeah.
They still press relentlessly, but there's this deeper layer of control now. It's like they're playing chess in the midfield, right?
Interesting.
And the key is they've moved away from that rigid 4-3-3.
Okay.
Their formation this season, it's so fluid.
Yeah.
It's like it's morphing right in front of our eyes.
And speaking of morphing, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or maybe the right back, not in the room, should I say?
Right.
Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yes.
Your sources cannot stop talking about this whole inverted fullback thing. What is the deal with that? Why is Klopp messing with such a classic position?
Well, I wouldn't say he's messing with it, actually. It's honestly one of the most exciting tactical trends we're seeing in football.
Okay.
And Alexander-Arnold, he's become the poster boy for it.
Right.
Essentially, it's like he's been given a whole new playbook.
Oh, okay.
When Liverpool have the ball.
Yeah.
He's not stuck out there glued to that sideline.
Right.
He tucks inside, and it's almost like he morphs into a midfielder.
So instead of just hugging the touchline, he's basically the quarterback now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And, that gives him this commanding view of the whole pitch.
Right.
So he can pick out those killer passes that he's famous for.
Right.
And he can really control the tempo of the game.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that sounds great, but isn't there also a risk there, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you're leaving your back line so open.
Yeah.
What happens if, the other team suddenly gets a quick counterattack going?
You're right. It's a high-risk, high-reward kind of strategy.
Yeah.
And a lot of your sources point out that Liverpool can be vulnerable in those transitional moments.
Yeah.
When the other team wins the ball back,
Right.
if the opposition is quick to counter,
Yeah.
it leaves them exposed at the back.
And, those moments, those are what, give Liverpool fans mini heart attacks, I bet.
Oh, I'm sure. They're on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
It puts so much pressure on Virgil van Dijk and the rest of the defense.
Right.
They have to cover so much ground for this system to work. Right.
Every player has to be so switched on.
Wow.
Aware of their position.
Yeah.
Communicating constantly.
Wow. It's like they always have to be. Always on their toes.
Absolutely.
It's almost like a dance routine or something like that. Where if one person's out of sync,
yeah, exactly.
the whole thing falls apart.
That's a great analogy because it really is about that synchronization.
Right.
And it's really fascinating to see because it's not just about having, these individual brilliant players. It's about how they all move together as a unit. And speaking of that, I mean, Alexander-Arnold, he might be the one grabbing the headlines with this new role.
Yeah, but your sources are right to point out that the midfielders, they're absolutely critical to making this whole system tick.
Right, because somebody's got to hold down the fort while,
exactly.
Trent's off on his adventures.
That's right. I mean, you can't...
Orchestrating from deep.
Exactly. You can't just have everyone running forward. And the sources you sent, they specifically mentioned Alexis McAllister and Dominik Szoboszlai.
Yeah.
They are not your average midfielders. They're not just winning the ball and passing it off.
Right.
These guys are the engine room of this Liverpool team.
Okay, so how are their roles different than what you'd normally expect?
Okay, so imagine this, right?
Okay.
McAllister, he picks up the ball deep, maybe even just in front of the defense.
Okay.
Now, instead of making a safe short pass,
right,
he looks up, he sees Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah.
He's drifted into that space on the right.
Yeah.
And boom, long diagonal pass.
Wow.
Completely bypasses the opposition midfield.
Right.
suddenly Liverpool are in a dangerous attacking position.
So it's like they've added this whole other layer, like this whole sort of dimension to their attack.
It's like a hidden weapon almost that they can just, unleash at any moment.
And then you get Szoboszlai, right?
Oh, yeah. And Szoboszlai, he's the one.
He's got that...
Yeah, he's got this incredible ability to just drive forward with the ball, drawing defenders towards him, creating space for others.
Yeah, like... He's a real handful for
he's a nightmare
for opposing teams.
Oh, absolutely, because he can beat you with a pass, he can beat you with a dribble, and it's not afraid to take players on.
Okay, so we've got the midfield maestro.
Yeah.
The quarterback in disguise. We got
right.
We got to talk about the guys up front.
Yeah.
I mean, Salah, Diaz, Nunez.
Of course. I mean, they're the ones.
Yeah, forget about that.
They're the ones who are putting the ball in the back of the net, right?
Right.
And your sources, they make a great point about Nunez in particular.
Okay.
Because he's not your typical striker. He's not just, staying glued to those center backs.
Right. He's not just camping out waiting for...
Exactly. He's not a target man in that sense. He's constantly moving, drifting wide, coming deep to pick up the ball, making runs in behind.
It keeps the defenders guessing, right?
Absolutely.
They don't know who to mark.
They have no idea because 1 minute he's dragging a center back out wide, creating space for Salah to cut inside.
Right.
The next minute he's racing onto a through ball from Alexander-Arnold.
Wow.
So it makes them incredibly difficult to defend against.
So it sounds like Klopp has basically built this tactical Frankenstein.
Chuckles. I like it.
Stitching together all these different elements, into this
it's like a puzzle.
This cohesive where all the pieces.
This dangerous unit, right?
Perfectly.
But with all this attacking firepower, is there enough balance in the team?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Right.
And I think it's something that a lot of analysts are wondering about because yes, Liverpool's attack is breathtaking at times.
It is.
I mean, they can tear teams apart.
Yeah.
But, this reliance on individual brilliance, this willingness to take risks at the back, it can leave them exposed.
Yeah, it's like they're always walking this tightrope, right? Like high risk, high reward.
Absolutely.
But one mistake. And
that's what makes it so exciting, right?
Yeah.
You watch them 1 week.
Yeah. And they're just unplayable. They're carving teams open, but then the next week, that back line is exposed and it gets a little bit nervy.
Yeah, so it's like, can Klopp find a way to keep that attack firing, but also shore up the defense a bit?
Yeah. And
I guess,
and can other teams figure out how to exploit it before he does?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the big question.
Right.
But what I find really interesting about all of this is it's not just a Liverpool thing.
Right.
When you look at your sources, this blend of tactical flexibility, individual brilliance, a bit of calculated risk-taking at the back.
Yeah.
This is becoming like the blueprint for success in modern football.
So it's like they're not just playing a different game. It's like they're rewriting the rules completely.
Exactly. And other teams they're looking at this and they're thinking, okay, we need to adapt. We're seeing more and more teams experimenting with these inverted fullbacks.
Yeah.
Some with more success than others, of course.
Right, of course.
But it'll be fascinating to see how this this sort of tactical arms race develops over the next few seasons.
It's like a giant chess match.
It really is.
With all these, world-class managers.
And we're the ones who get to sit here and dissect it, right?
Analyze it.
The analysts, the fans, that's the beauty of football.
And argue about it.
Exactly.
Yes.
It never stands still. It's constantly evolving. Exactly. And the teams that innovate.
Yeah.
And the managers that are brave enough to try new things. Right. They're the ones who are going to come out on top.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
Really appreciate your insights.
My pleasure.
And for you listening, keep an eye on Liverpool.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to look beyond Anfield as well.
Exactly.
Because these tactical innovations, they're happening everywhere.
They are. And,
it's a really interesting time for football.
It is a great time to be a fan because
it is.
The next time you're watching a game,
Yeah.
Don't just watch the ball.
Right.
Watch the movement off the ball.
Right. Watch the patterns, the tactical nuances.
You might be surprised at what you see.
You absolutely might.
Great advice. That's going to do it for this deep dive. Thanks again for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And until next time, keep exploring the beautiful game.